Hey y'all, one of my friends on Kick sent me a wonderful box of crystals, and I picked this one out and I went to make it into a glow-in-the-dark mushroom for her. So I'm starting with just a little bit of glow-in-the-dark Cos clay. Now I kind of messed up and mixed this with a bunch of Sculpey as well, the glow-in-the-dark, and so it's very, very sticky and soft, but that's okay. It's still going to work great for this purpose. And I am just adhering the clay to the crystal. And now I'm going to take just a little bit of cling wrap and I'm going to use, this is a black walnut that got put through the washing machine in my jacket pocket. So it is good and clean, y'all. But I love the texture that it leaves on our clay. Now this clay is super soft, so as I'm going through rounding, you're just kind of rolling the walnut over the surface of it. It already kind of smushes its own detail back out. So it's not a ton of detail in there. And we can come through and add just a few deeper marks if we want. But now I'm going to pinch the tip and just twist and tug just a little. And now I'm going to come around with, this is a silicone tipped sculpting tool, like a little stylus. And I'm going to just blend this down. I do have the oven preheated to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. And the links for all the different tools and materials that I'm using will be down in the video description below. But I'm just blending this line, this edge rather, of the clay to the crystal. And then we can actually pull up back onto the crystal. And I just like the little feathered finish that this gives us. A lot of the details aren't going to be super visible right now, but every line that we do, every little detail is going to really pop once we get some paint on here. And we will be putting on a little bit of paint, so that's how that's looking. And so now I'm going to take this and I am just going to sit it in a little cup of foil. Let me show you. So this is a glazed ceramic tile that just has some dried acrylic paint on it. And this is the bit of foil that I'm going to be using. I want the foil to hold the crystal and keep it from falling over, because if I lay this down to bake it, we could set it in a little bed of cornstarch or something as well, but I think that'll be just fine. We'll just set that in there like this. And then I am going to go bake this for about 20 minutes. You can see, even if it tips over, it's still upright, and that way it'll be nice and kind of three-dimensional. We won't have to worry about which way is going to be the front or anything like that. While that is in the oven, I am passing some stiffer Sculpey clay through my pasta machine, just on the thickest setting. I'm really just doing this to condition it. And it looks like we got a streak of some other color in there, but again, super duper not worried. Whenever our clay is nice and conditioned, and an indicator of that is I can fold it and there aren't any cracks along that fold line, and I can also pass it through the machine and we don't get much cracking and spreading along that edge. So you could always go a little farther with your conditioning efforts, but I find that to be good enough. And now re-smushing it back together. I think I only needed about half of this for our mushroom, and we can kind of decide what style of cap we want. Do we want a flat cap that comes out like a pancake? We could even have it, looking at reference images at a time like this is fantastic, because that way you can kind of decide, do you want a little mushroom that would sit more like this? Let's pretend like this is the stem. So that's not exactly my favorite, but we experimented and now we know. And so I have a tendency to really like conically tipped mushrooms with a nice flared base. And so I've rolled it out into a cone, and then I'm just pinching around the base of that cone. And I'm going to press and twist this down just a little. And things do not need to be perfect. It looks like if I'm going to do one this style, we might want to put a little bit more material. So we're going to smush it. This is great conditioning for your hand strength. So if your hands get tired, take a break, do some stretching, And so I'm going to begin now by just making a ball and then pressing my thumb. Let's start over, that way I can, so we have our ball, and I'm just pressing the bone of my thumb, or the tip of my thumb rather. Yeah, the tip of my thumb. I'm trying to not get my fingernails in the way. Around that edge. And so now you can see, I mean, it's kinda, but not quite. And from here, we can, still using my thumb as the base, I'm just going to kind of pull that cap down just a little to blend it out to the edge. I'm going to press the edges in to make it a little bit more round. It may be very helpful to you to use reference images, but I just wanted to make something from my imagination. And so from here, we can use that same stylus, the same silicone tipped stylus, to just start testing out. Doing radiating gill lines underneath. So we may want something a little more like that in shape. But I still feel like we could perhaps do a little better. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the amount of clay that we have. And I'm looking around for my favorite. Alrighty, y'all. Future voiceover Vaughn here. Not a robot, I promise. And so what I'm doing here is we take a small circle, like a sphere of clay, and I'm rolling it out with my largest ball stylus onto a dampened high-density sponge. All the tools and materials that I'm using will be listed down below, but I just use whatever I have on hand, so you don't have to have exactly what I'm using to make it work. To add some cute greenery details, I've taken some really old polymer clay. Like the cane that I smushed up to make this green blend was about a decade old. So it still works, it just needed reconditioned, which is why I sacrificed all the hard work of old Vaughn, past Vaughn who made the cane. I just smushed it and rolled it up and it worked out perfectly fine. But I really love that the polymer clay doesn't go bad. And I roll it out kind of tapered to the tip, and then cut it with either a knife or my fingernail, roll it out a little bit more, and use a needle tool to smush it onto the baked glow-in-the-dark clay and quartz crystal. After fiddling with it for a bit and adding some little leafy details and stuff, I thought it'd be really cool to add this little cloudy quartz cabochon that I had gotten ages ago in a mixed cabochon bag from Fire Mountain Gems that was mostly a lot of glass and quartz and agate and sodalite, but more white than blue, and unakite and stuff. So it was lots of tiger's eye. That was really nice. But it was just a nice mixed bag of different cabochons. And so again, this whole project has been so validating in enabling my hoarding. I'm just going to say, because being able to use polymer clay that I had been hoarding in a drawer forever, being able to use cabochons that I had been hoarding in a drawer forever, there's no telling what else I might be able to use on these mushrooms. That has just been waiting patiently for me in my dragon's hoard of craft stash. I roll out a very thin bit of the Cosclay glow in the dark. So I've been using the Sculpey Primo glow in the dark that glows green and is quite a bit firmer than the Cosclay. And then I've been using the Cosclay blue glow in the dark just because that's what I had on my desk. And that's what I used here. And that's what I used here because the Cosclay is a rubberized polymer clay that has a lot of flexibility. And I really wanted the delicate features of the little gilly part of the mushroom, like the frilly, to not break off, but to be able to have like flex and movement and everything. So I've rolled it quite thin, like size 7 on my Makings pasta machine. And then using my hand and a silicone tipped tool, I've added some character to it, and then just smushing it onto the already baked tip of the stem. And to be clear, just the stem has been baked here. The greenery has not been baked yet. The cap of our mushroom hasn't been baked yet, so I've lined it with some of the very soft Cosclay, and I'm going to use, I would recommend either an 18 gauge or 16 gauge wire with a little crook bent at the tip of it, just pushed through from the bottom coming out the top. And I like to bake that in there. You could do it this way, or you could bake it and then drill it and push it through. But this is basically how I'm going to sink the pin, and I prefer to do this instead of using like drilling the hole and just gluing a pin down into it. I feel a lot more confident that this is going to hold together. I then baked the cap for 25 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. When the cap has come out of the oven, I fill it with more of that blue glow Cosclay. Blue glow Cosclay, there we go. And add in some different gill textures, like for the underside of it. And then I'm going to smush the stem with the unbaked frilly part into the cap, set it back into its foil stand, and bake it for its final bake for a full, I think I did 45 minutes, just because. So 45 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. I used a combination of acrylic markers and Halo Blue Gold paint by Lumiere, like Lumiere paints by Jacquard, to paint the cap, but I ended up wandering completely out of frame, and so I don't have full footage of that. But there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just get the color on there in a way that makes you happy, and I ended up being very happy with it, so that's good. For the next step, I'm coming through and I am doing an acrylic wash using undiluted satin multi-surface acrylic paint. And I haven't done any sealing or anything on our mushroom. I'm just going to start applying the paint on and then wiping it off with a paper towel, and then using a paper towel slightly dampened with a 99% isopropyl alcohol to remove even more of the excess paint. So I had said that we were going to do it undiluted, and then I accidentally stuck my brush in some water, and so now we've just abandoned the entire plan, and I'm coming through to really water down some of the paint that I put up here on the little skirt of the mushroom, because that is way more paint on there than what I intended. And I'm having trouble rinsing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this continuous mist sprayer of just water. Oh, yes. To kind of just pressure wash. And then we're going to let this dry and start over. And I'm going to do it just a little at a time. Though I'm pretty pleased with the way that the color is pooling there in the cap of the mushroom. So it all worked out in the end this time. Now that our mushroom is nice and dry, I'm going to come through with some UV resin. And I'm Still learning how to use this to great effectiveness. And I'm just going to use a silicone tipped brush to drag it around. I just want to get it smoothed over our whole surface area here. I'm hoping this will give our whole cap just a really nice dimensional look. Oh, look at that. That is so cool. That is so cool. I'm gonna let it cure and then do another layer or two, and then I'll set it out in the sun to fully cure. That way I'm good and happy with it. So the resin got nice and set up, but there's a little bit of a bulge right there, and I could either continue to build resin up onto it, or I could leave it as is, or we could come through and sand it, which I think gives us a little bit of a risk of not getting like a really nice gloss finish again. And I think I'd rather have the really glossy finish than have it be perfectly domed. Though I don't know. Let's go ahead and try. So I'm gonna grab some sandpaper and we'll do another, we'll just see if we can get this fixed up to be even better. Alrighty, y'all, we have UV resin to the top after sanding it back down, and now I'm going to straighten out our wire, and you can see that UV resin that dripped down the wire just kind of comes off a bit, so that's okay. But I'm just going to bend because we have our little bail here. Well, come on through, Miss Kitty. Come on through. And there's a bunch of different ways that you could finish up your bail, y'all. And then I'm going to use my wire snips. I'm just going to get in here and snip it. I'm giving myself about 15 millimeters. And then we'll use our round nose pliers to make a nice loop. Whoop. That UV resin is still there on that wire, which I think is actually pretty cool, but it does make my pliers slip. And then I'm going to open up that loop, and we're going to put our bail into place, and then we're going to close it back. And that is, we could have made a smaller loop if you're into that, but I don't mind a nice big spacious loop that's kind of blurry. There we go. Pardon the cat butt. Ooh. Well, she did just dip her foot in my coffee, so that's fantastic. I love her anyways, though. Ember is 19 years old, and quite frankly, I'm like, she's got seniority at this point, at least in cat years, so she can do whatever she wants in my house. Come stomp around on my projects or what have you. But this is how our mushroom is looking. I'm going to send it off to my friend as a thank you for her sending us all these crystals that I've made. All of these mushrooms over here, which will actually be in, some of them will be in our upcoming auction. And I'm sending a little doodle to her as well with her with her mushroom pendant. But a lot of these will be going into, made with the same technique, but I painted it differently. I used a high density sponge and just kind of bloop, 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 like a sponge, like stippled it on. Very technical terminology. But all of them are glow in the dark and fluoresce under a black light, even the cap colors. But they'll be in our upcoming auction. We have an auction quarterly, so be sure to sign up for our newsletter so you stay up to date with that. And then if we have some left over after the auction, they'll be going up into our website, backtoearthcreations.com. I really like that one with the sardonyx, but this one's got some snowflake obsidian. And then whatever is still on the website, whenever we get to our next vending event, which you can find at the bottom of our homepage, on our website, you can find a list of events to see where we will be going forth to sow mischief and crafty mayhem. we just vend. We just set up and be like, talk about jewelry and sculpting and crafting and stuff. I really like this moss agate one with the little purple flowers, but hopefully everything will go really well. Wish us luck. Good luck to you in your crafting endeavors, and I will see y'all next time. And until then, you guys, happy crafting. One last look. Oh, mwah. Bye.